Hey everybody, I'm Sexy Matt the Pharaoh Wizard, and it's time once again to rank a giant franchise from worst to best. And this one, I'm doing one that I've had an interesting history with. With Star Trek in general, I'm a huge next-gen fan. I've loved it. I'm not a big fan of the original series, and I've only seen parts of Deep Space Nine, and I really haven't seen Voyager at all, or Enterprise. Discovery, I can take or leave at times, and I've really loved Picard. And I'm sort of all over the place with Star Trek. And when I decided to do this countdown, I realized there's some I've actually never even seen before. So I went ahead and watched them all to refresh some of the ones I haven't seen in a while, to see the ones I had never seen, and to really rank them. And so I thought this would be a good franchise for myself to do it. So here we go, the worst to best Star Trek movies.
Number 13. Star Trek V: The Final Frontier.
Oh boy, where do I even begin with this one? This is horrible. It's cheap looking, the plot makes little to no sense, most people don't seem like they even want to be there. It's really, really, really bad. So this is the one that's famous for the line, "What does God want with a spaceship?" And I don't know how this franchise got past this, because there's more original series movies after this too, so I don't know how it got past this, but somehow it did. But this one's really bad. The ship is broken for, I don't even know if they gave a really good reason. And so that was a constant plot device, that parts of the ship was broken for no reason. It just seemed like one of the bad episodes from the show, but in movie form. Like, even to the point that, like, the main villain is just like a gas alien. And it's really bad, really dumb, and I really hate this one, to be honest. Straight up hate it.
Scott, you're amazing. There's nothing amazing about it. I know this ship like the back of my hand.
Number 12. Star Trek: The Motion Picture.
So the first Star Trek movie, a bit of a swing and a miss in my opinion. It does have some good things, and when I was watching it, you know, I've always heard that it's really slow and it doesn't go anywhere, and it's been a long time since I watched it, and I was watching it and kind of enjoying it, was getting into it, and was like, no, this isn't as bad as everyone makes it out to be, no, it's fine. And then it just keeps going, and keeps going, and keeps going, and I'm like, we're still going, okay, and you look and you're like, there's like another hour left. And it does, like, it feels like at a decent pace at first, but good lord, it slows way down. Then it kind of goes nowhere and farts around, and it's slow, and it's boring, and it's just not good. I try to give it the benefit of the doubt, but it just falls into the same old traps that everyone says about it all the time. And yeah, it's just a really slow, overwrought kind of version of Star Trek.
This, then, is the epic journey of the Starship Enterprise, traveling to the outer limits of time and space to challenge a vast, living machine of
Number 11. Star Trek: Generations.
So the first next-gen movie is also the worst next-gen movie. They tried to do what they did with the original series, and after the series ended, start a line of movies, and that's what they eventually came up with. And they wanted to tie this one back to the original series, bringing in some old mainstays, specifically Captain Kirk, and some of that worked, and it was really cool to see Kirk and Picard interacting with each other. But the villain was pretty weak. The idea of the Nexus was kind of interesting, but, it just wasn't enough that felt like it needed a movie. It was just sort of... it felt like a long episode, and it really didn't give the pomp and circumstance that the first next-gen movie should have been, and also the first movie with Picard and Kirk interacting with each other, and it was pretty bad, and really you can tell Shatner didn't really want to be there. He really gave it half-assed, and I'm not a big fan of Kirk, to be honest, in general, the character, so for me it wasn't that interesting, and there's nothing horribly wrong with it, but it's just sort of blah.
You're a Starfleet officer. You have a duty.
I don't need to be lectured by you. I was out saving the galaxy when your grandfather was in diapers.
Number 10. Star Trek III, The Search for Spock.
Speaking of movies that were just sort of blah, The Search for Spock, it's fine, I guess. Has some interesting things, like Spock being reborn on the Genesis planet was pretty cool. But, it was missing Kirstie Alley, who was a real awesome addition in Wrath of Khan. And it just sort of meandered a lot. There were some good ideas here, but it just sort of farted around, like lack of a better term, it just sort of farted around for a while and then was a movie. It was a good way to bring Spock back, but honestly, it made his death stronger in Wrath of Khan if he would have just stayed dead. But it had some interesting ideas, and then did continue on from stuff from Wrath of Khan, which was really cool, because a lot of times these movies will just kind of take off without really doing a lot of continuity from previous movies. So it was interesting to see some of that, but overall, it was just sort of there.
The word is no. I am therefore going anyway.
Number 9. Star Trek, Insurrection.
And, not to be too redundant, but this is the next gen's version of the movie that's just sort of there. Insurrection, I hear a lot of people don't really like it at all, and honestly, this is my first Star Trek movie I saw in theaters, surprisingly enough. So it does have a special place in my heart, and it does have some really cool stuff. The idea of a Fountain of Youth planet would definitely be something that the Federation or tons of parties would be after. And the idea that this race has split off into 2 generations, and a lot of that stuff is really cool, and how the race living on the planet used to be super technologically advanced, and then once they landed decided to pull back and learn about the world and live with the Earth, live with like the planet they're on and stuff like that. That was all really cool stuff. So I really got into a lot of that, but they didn't also do a lot with that, and it didn't really lend itself to a lot of good action. It was just sort of their action, but overall I enjoyed it, but it didn't leave a huge impression on me either.
Participating in the outright theft of a world.
They were never meant to be immortal.
Who the hell are we to determine the next course of evolution for this people?
Number 8. Star Trek Into Darkness.
Oh boy, do I have a lot to say about this one. So this is the worst Calvin timeline one, in which the Calvin ones are the most recent Star Trek movies. And I got a lot to go on this one, so hopefully it won't take too long. So the good stuff is I really like the idea of, because of the changes in the timeline from what happened in the previous movie, that the Starfleet started to militarize, and I thought they could have done a lot more with that and done some more interesting with that. And there was a good story in there somewhere, as well as, Kirk kind of figuring out being this brash, crazy guy, but also knowing, like, they're a science, team. Like, Starfleet is about science and discovery, and they're not so much about being militarized. And there's a good story in there somewhere. but then they ham-fisted Khan in there, and all it does is remind you that Wrath of Khan is a better movie. Like, I'll be going along with it and enjoying it, and then something will happen with Khan, and you're like, oh yeah, they did that better in Wrath of Khan, though. On top of all that, it should have ended with Kirk's death, but then just kept going. There's like another 30 minutes after Kirk's death, and it just kept going, and everything past that was terrible. It was just more dumb action and didn't really need to be there, so it's just overzealous. It was ham-fisted trying to do the Khan stuff when they really should have done their own thing. There is some really good parts to it. I really enjoyed the Kirk and Spock interactions, and it looks gorgeous, but it has some major problems.
You think you're safe? You are not.
Number 7, Star Trek, Nemesis.
So this is one of the movies I haven't seen until this year. I don't know why I missed Nemesis completely, but somehow I did. And I really liked it. It's not the best, obviously, because it's right in the middle of the countdown, but I thought it was really cool to see some nature versus nurture stuff. The fight at the end of it was really cool. The idea of this other planet that's complete slaves to the Romulans, so you're kind of going for them because, yeah, they shouldn't be slaves, and it did some really cool stuff, and I really enjoyed it and had some cool visuals. I liked it. It didn't quite get to the peaks that Star Trek could get, but I found it very, very enjoyable, and I think it gets a lot more hate than it really deserves, and I enjoyed it.
I'm a mirror for you as well.
Don't be so vain.
Number 6, Star Trek 4, The Voyage Home.
So everything beyond here is basically the best of Star Trek. So this one is the one I saw the most growing up because it's the only one my mom liked, so it was the only one we ever got to watch because she couldn't stand Star Trek. But The Voyage Home, I went into rewatching this one recently as almost being prepared to hate it because it's just so overdone and the jokes are cheesy and the time travel's cheesy and it's a lot of the fish out of the water. But honestly, it still held up and it overtook my want to hate and made it very enjoyable. Now, some of those problems still exist, the fish out of water stuff, a lot of the cheesy jokes from when they're in the 80s and things like that. They do kind of age. Some are still really funny, like Scotty trying to talk to the computer through the mouse. I don't know why that's still funny, but it's going to always be funny for me. And, it had some interesting plot lines and it really worked. I really enjoyed it and thought it was a great place for Star Trek to go, and it was some really good stuff.
Judging by the pollution content of the atmosphere, I believe we have arrived at the latter half of the 20th century.
Number 5, Star Trek 6, The Undiscovered Country.
So another one that I haven't seen until this year, somehow again, Undiscovered Country just flew right under my radar, and it is the final original series cast movie, and they left on a really good note. I really enjoyed Undiscovered Country. I love the mystery aspect to it, and like some of the action parts to it. It really was a lot of really good just Star Trek. It dealt with a lot more political intrigue rather than space battles. I mean, there's still space battles in it, but it dealt with a little bit more of that rather than just blast, blast, shoot, shoot. And it was really cool, and it really, really worked. I didn't know what to expect from this one because, again, I'd never seen it, and honestly, no one really ever talks about it, but I gotta say, it is fantastic and probably one of the best original series movies. Well, obviously, because it's way up on the list. But there you go. I really enjoyed Undiscovered Country.
I have so wanted to meet you, Captain. One warrior to another.
Right.
Number 4, Star Trek Beyond.
So as of recording of this video, this is the final Star Trek movie that we've been given, and I can't wait for them to do another one. I freaking love Star Trek Beyond. It is perfect. It is so beautifully shot and has some great action, and it really deals with the mental stresses of being on a starship and what it means to be on a starship. It deals with really old Starfleet stuff. The villain was great. Idris Elba was amazing. And Sophie Botella was amazing in this, and the makeup in it is so fantastic. It's just really awesome new Star Trek. Like, it definitely separates itself. It's not tied to much as Next Gen, but this is what I wanted Into Darkness to be, is to do their own thing. They set up a perfect way to continue Star Trek, and they should have just gone with it, and this is what this did. It went with it, and it went beyond, pun intended, and it was so good. I really love this one. I really hope we get more with this franchise and with this cast. It would be some really cool stuff, and I absolutely loved it.
Well, at least I won't die alone. Well, that's just typical.
Number 3, Star Trek.
So this was a hard movie to do because they had to reboot Star Trek without another show, and they've never done that before because the previous show to this was Enterprise, and no one wanted an Enterprise movie. So what do? And they found a way within the Star Trek world and the same universe to reboot the universe, but also keep it within the same universe. It is like three-dimensional amazing chess, and it absolutely worked. The new cast is amazing. Chris Pine is a great Kirk, even though I don't like Kirk as a character. He is a great Kirk. Zachary Quinto, so good as Spock. And Zoe Saldana, like everyone in this is so amazing, so great. And it really works. Every time I go to watch this again, I feel like I'm gonna be annoyed, like the light flares and how clean, like Apple looking the Enterprise is, but overall, every time I still watch it, I still find myself highly enjoying it. I can't hate it for whatever reason. It's just really, really good, and I really enjoy it, and it's so fantastic. I loved it.
We've got no captain and no first officer to replace him.
Yeah, we do.
Number 2, Star Trek II, The Wrath of Khan.
So of course this one was going to make it hugely on the list. The best original series movie by far, no contest, absolutely. You guys might be mad that it's number 2 rather than number 1, but hear me out. I'm, like I said prior in the very beginning of this video, I'm not a big fan of the original series. I have sat and watched it multiple times, and I don't know, I don't think it ages well, and I don't like Kirk as a captain. But this one really turns that on its head. It pushes Kirk to his absolute limit, and it's almost like a full submarine battle between Kirk and Khan, and it's these two guys trying to outsmart each other constantly and trying to get one over on the other, and the tension from that is so amazing, and some of the stuff that pays off from it is so good. It just really works, and the way it ties into the original series, and probably one of the best episodes from the original series, is so good. It's got its fanfare. It's so good. I don't know what else really to mention about it that hasn't already been said, but I really do enjoy it. And when you get back to rewatch it, it's still really good, and it's one of the best Star Trek movies.
I've done far worse than kill you. I've hurt you. And I wish to go on hurting you. I shall leave you as you left me, marooned for all eternity, buried alive, buried alive.
Number 1, Star Trek, First Contact.
So So, of course, my fanboyness is going to put this one at top because it is the best next-gen movie, and I believe Next Gen is the best show from Star Trek. So, yes, this is going to be the top one for me. I'm sorry, but it is so freaking good. I love the Borg as a villain and seeing the Borg Queen. She has such a really great design. Picard having to deal with the Borg because he was assimilated in the 3rd season and having to deal with those feelings going into this. Data being transformed into a higher version of being an android with like real skin and having to decide if he's going to turn on his friends to deal with that. The rest of the crew having to go into the past to help make sure that we have Ephraim Cochrane still, shoot his his ship into space and get that going. The ties to not only Next Gen but the original series with Ephraim Cochrane and things like that was so good. Everything about this is so perfect. It is the best of the Next Gen distilled into one single movie, and I freaking love it. Every time I watch it, I'm still enthralled with it. It is so good, so fantastic. Number 1 with a freaking bullet, Star Trek First Contact.
Invade our space, and we fall back. They assimilate entire worlds, and we fall back. Not again. The line must be drawn here.
So there you go. That is my list of the worst to best Star Trek movies. What do you guys think? Was my list completely off, or would you change some spots? Where do we think we're going to get another movie? Do you think we'll get a Discovery movie, or maybe they'll continue something from the Calvin universe? I don't know. It'd be interesting to see either way. But I am very excited to if we can ever get some more Star Trek movies, but I am happy with the shows we're getting now. So I'm Sexy Matt the Pharaoh Wizard. Until next time, hold on to your hold slots.